Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sports Betting Podcast, Bookends, powered by STN Sports. He's Jason, I'm Chucky. We're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook, and I know it's a little slow time of year, but I'm going to say it throughout the segment, and I'm excited. 50 days to the start of NFL football. 50 days. So if you're a football fan, it is right around the corner. We're going to dive into some football, but first, let's start with baseball. It's the All Star Game just ended. I love the baseball All Star Game. I think the home run hitting contest really is one of the fun events. Granted, this year we didn't have Ohtani, you didn't have Bryce Harper in it, you didn't have some of the big name Judge home run hitters, but it was really fun. The way it was worked out, kind of the new format was fun. It was 3 hours, but I really enjoyed it, and we got a tremendous handle on it, a lot of action, and a lot of interest for the home run hitting contest.
Yeah, and again, it was not only to pick the winner of the home run derby, but we had all these props, different stuff, home runs in the first round, the head-to-head matchups, all that type of stuff. Teoscar Hernandez, huge congratulations. Bobby Witt Jr. almost pulled it off. I did like the new format.
I loved it.
You did talk about it being a little long. Obviously, the favorite, and Pete Alonso, kind of crapped the bed right out of the box. It looked like really his pitcher struggled to throw a lot of strikes.
Even Gunnar Henderson, who was the last one because he led in home runs, really didn't do well either.
Yeah, it really came down with the 40 pitches. It came down to being able to throw strikes and guys getting in a groove. Watching Alec Baum in that first round close things out in that back half and pumping those homers. It was a lot of fun. It's something to look forward in the next couple of years. And I think that you're going to see the big name players start to come back to the home run derby with the way that the event went this year.
I mean, it's fun to watch. I mean, really kind of listen to these guys. And in Teoscar's case, again, congratulations as well. He said he wanted to do it for a number of years. You almost found us kind of rooting for him a little bit. And actually, we needed him in the final over Bobby Witt.
Yeah, and the guy, the stars supporting, watching Vladimir Guerrero come out and support the guys, and Harper
he coached him.
and all
he
the
gave him
Phillies
some advice.
Coming out made it a lot of fun. And then the game itself was really a really good, exciting game. Obviously, I mean, being kind of kicked off by Burns versus Skeens in that first inning, and what kind of strikeouts Skeens would get. And again, the guys loaded up the app with a ton of props. Watching Ohtani
with the home
pop
run,
a 3-run homer just felt like almost goosebumps of this is what baseball's about. Duran hitting the 2-run homer to eventually take the lead. But really, the National League kind of dominated play. They had 10 hits to the American League's 5 hits. The American League just had those timely hits, the 2-run single by Soto, Fry with a 2-out single to score him, and then Duran the 2-run homer to win it. But the big shot by Ohtani, and then really the American League pitchers doing an outstanding job of just shutting them down the rest of the game. And kind of the guys I was impressed with, Christopher Sanchez for the Philadelphia Phillies came out and 2 pitches, got 2 outs, and then got pulled out. And Robert Suarez for the Padres come out, got his two guys to strike out, and then was pulled from the game. So again, some awesome pitching on display in the game itself.
You know, with saying that though, that's why the total opened up 7.5. It was bet heavily toward the under, and then to 7, and it was bet under. And I think a big key to that is that you're looking at these pitchers that are so dominant, as Jay mentioned, Burns and Skeens to start the game. But that's why the total was bet under, because they're only pitching an inning. They get an opportunity to kind of showcase their stuff. They're coming out there throwing it, 100 miles an hour. They're not going to have to face these guys a second time, and it was bet under heavily in this game. So we were clearly over fans here. And the American League, once again, have won 10 out of 11 All Star games, so it really helps them going into the postseason, whoever that representative would be.
Yep.
All right, now we're going to jump over to the golf a little bit. I know there's a lot of stuff on the golf board. So the Open Championship, most tickets, Morikawa, Oberg, Rory, biggest liability, Spieth, and Tiger. Tiger opened up 250 to 1. We've already dropped that price a little bit to 200 to 1. But there was a lot of things on the app.
Yeah, and again, with it being the Open Championships overseas, we're going to have a little bit of a different time that we're dealing with. The tournament's going to go off at 10:30 tonight on Wednesday night. You're going to have to be able to bet into the overnight hours. Probably 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Tournament will end, and we'll be resetting the prices. So look for the stuff to happen. I'm absolutely amazed by the menu we have, and excuse me and give me a good 35 seconds here, but I'm going to rattle off some of the things that you can bet on to win the Open Championship. Number 1, obviously, the winner of the tournament. Will your golfer finish in the top 5? Will your golfer finish in the top 10? Will your golfer make the cut? And then top American golfer, top European golfer, top Scandinavian golfer, top Asian golfer, top South African, top live golfer, top lefty, top Englishman, top former winner, top Irishman, top amateur, top Canadian, Top Australian. Will there be a hole-in-one? Will there be a playoff? Will your guy make the cut, the winning margin, the cut line? And then we also have 18 head-to-head tournament matchups. So there is no lack of menu to look at to bet this open tournament.
But what you're saying is that if you don't have STN Sports, you don't have the app, you're missing all this stuff. You have to get signed up for STN Sports. I mean, we touched on, I'm going to say it again, 50 days till the start of NFL football. But right now, look at all the stuff that's on the app. It's pretty cool.
And it's loaded up. It's not just golf. We talk about all the stuff that's going on right now. The WNBA, the Summer League. The guys are filling up the props. A lot of action on all these games.
Touched on that. Olympic preview. So just a few things that basketball, soccer, rugby, volleyball, water polo, tennis, swimming, track and field, handball. I'm not taking the 30 seconds. I'm going for the under. But there is a lot of stuff on the app right now. We know it's a little slow, but there are so many things going on right now. It's such a great time to get signed up in advance of football season because there's all this cool stuff going on.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a great. We're talking about the Olympics. The other thing is we're going to come out of this All-Star break on Friday, and we've got a big number of teams that are right there chasing that wild card spot. So despite the fact that we've got a couple teams that are at the top, there is a massive number of teams fighting to stay in this wild card race. So this first kind of 2 weeks as we come out of the break here is going to be absolutely huge to see who's buyers and sellers at this trade deadline.
That's the key. The trade deadline is the 31st. So who's going to be the first one out of the chute to make that big move to help their team?
But get on the app, check out what we've got going on, especially coming out of this baseball season, because there's a lot of money to be made. As much as you guys were killing us and cashing a lot of tickets, cashing a lot of winners before we went into the break, I'm excited to come out of the break and watch what these teams do for these next 2 weeks to see who's going to try and make that run for the playoffs.
Yeah, so we've touched on the other sports, and I'm going to go back at it again. 50 days until NFL football. I'm going to say it throughout the segment, guys. You're going to hate to hear it, but you're going to be fired up by the time we're done. So looking at the rookie impact, we saw so many rookie quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Who do we think will make the biggest impact? And not just because we're Bear fans, but I really think it's Caleb Williams. And the reason I think that is that it's not your prototypical team that drafted first. The Bears were one of the better teams during the second half of the season, and he goes into an offense that has DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift, and a defense that was top 5 in the league toward the end of last year. I think they play in one of the tougher divisions in all of football, Jay. The Packers with Jordan Love and that young receiver core. We know how good Jared Goff and the Lions have become. The Vikings have a great skill position players. They had J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold. Not sure who's going to win that battle yet, but I really think the situation that Caleb Williams goes in is probably one of the better number one or rookie quarterback situations that I can remember in the last decade. You look at so many young quarterbacks that are thrust into an offense that is really bad. The team is drafting number one for a reason. That wasn't the case with Chicago because they had Carolina's pick.
Yeah, and I think the expectations are so very high. So despite if he performs and he performs well, it's still is he performing at that level of expectations?
But it's all not going to be on his shoulders because of the key guys they have.
I think at the end of the day, he's the number one pick. The way that this kind of went down and the way that he left USC, I think that he's got to perform at that super high level. I'm not saying he needs to be Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes level, but he's going to have to be a top 8 quarterback in the NFL to meet these expectations, and he should be with that receiving core that they have put around him. I look, it's tough to say a guy like Drake May has a lot of expectations on him from a rookie quarterback standpoint. A Bo Nix.
Who is Drake May throwing to?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Bo Nix throwing to?
Those teams, those rookie quarterbacks have not been put in a very good situation. Obviously, Michael Penix drafted is most likely going to be behind Cousins. So the other one for me is Jaden Daniels, who heads out to the Washington Commanders. I think a lot of pressure on Jalen Daniels. He, again, does have a pretty good receiving core. He's got that double-headed monster at running back. So they've got a good offense around him, and they shouldn't be that run-first offense. I think that they're going to be a little bit better balanced offense. Right. So I look for Jaden Daniels to be the other rookie quarterback that could potentially make a splash.
He's got some really good young wideouts in Dotson, McLaren, and like you said, the two-headed monster at running back with Eckler and Robinson. So they've got a lot of skill.
One of the better running backs in the league at catching the ball out of the backfield.
Right. So it is going to be interesting to see, but I think some of those quarterbacks are really in a position where you ask a lot of them, but it's just really tough if you don't have the surrounding cast. We saw Mac Jones really struggle in New England. We saw Justin Fields struggle with the Bears. It's because they didn't have that cast. I think you really have to surround these young quarterbacks with a lot of talent, or let them sit for a few years like the Packers did with Jordan Love. Some of the key maybe storylines, going into the league, going into the season. I think one is, for me, it's Dallas. The contract situation with Dak, with Parsons, and with CeeDee Lamb. What ultimately happens with those guys? And then I think the expectation levels, I'm going to stay in Texas, is with the Texans, is that we know how good Stroud was last year. They go out and pick up Stephon Diggs to go with Dell and Nico Collins and a good young defense, but they're hovering around 12-1 to win the Super Bowl. And you've got the Jags at 40 and the Colts at 70. It just seems like that gap is really wide. I think they're much closer than that. There's a lot of tape on C.J. Stroud now. The expectation level is that he takes it to the next level. Anxious to see how the Texans, does he have enough football to throw around to all those guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting story, and he's definitely one of those guys, Stroud, from a standpoint of flying up the fantasy charts with the weapons that he has around him, the addition of Diggs, the defense improvement last year. I'm just as surprised as you as the separation of the Texans within the division. Obviously, the Colts are going to get Anthony Richardson back, and they've got a pretty good team around him, right. A good running back, good defense.
They drafted Mitchell.
The Jaguars, were sky high after the Lawrence 2 years ago, and then they kind of fell back to earth. I think that we're underplaying what Jacksonville has there and their ability to play football. I think that there's a good core there.
The value is more on the Colts and the Jags than it is on the Texans right now.
I look at it from a standpoint of kind of what's going to happen and what are we going to see entering this season. I think the Steelers is an interesting conversation. I think that Russell Wilson is most likely going to win the job over Justin Fields. I don't even think that's even a question mark at any point right now. But I just wonder, as we get through 4 or 5 games of the season, if Russell Wilson has any type of struggles, do they make a quick change there? And then in Denver is the other real storyline of who's going to start at quarterback there. They kind of have 3 guys that are up in the air, Nix and Stidham
and Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
Right.
So I don't know that any of those are a winning situation, especially to go along with. They don't have a very good team to go around them. Obviously, Javonte Williams from a running back standpoint, Cortland Sutton, the number 1 wide receiver. But that team is very, very weak. They have a very, very
Franklin
low.
They drafted too.
Yeah,
with
Troy Franklin could be
a
star, and Nick's is familiar with him. That team has a very, very low over-under win total, and I'm afraid that we might see the Denver Broncos look a lot like the Detroit Lions 4, 5, 6 years ago when we had a team that was struggling to pick up a win. I think that the Denver Broncos are in a lot of trouble, and I think we could see this team have 0 wins for quite some time going into the season.
If that happens, I personally don't think that Bo Nix wins the job out of camp. I think maybe after the first month or so, it's probably going to be Stidham. Maybe Zach Wilson, depending on how they look in the preseason. But I think by week 4 to 6, you're going to see that quarterback change in Bo Nix, and then you'll see Sean Payton kind of influx his offense there and start to see them develop a little bit. I think the quarterback battle in our backyard is interesting too. The Raiders were rumored to be in on Penix. We're looking to potentially trade up for Jaden Daniels, Justin Fields. They really were looking for a quarterback. Aiden O'Connell played okay last year, but they bring in Gardner Minshew too. I think they're like dead even. Maybe it's 51-49 O'Connell right now going into preseason. But I think that quarterback battle is going to be really interesting to see who ultimately wins that. There's some buzz already about could Devontae Adams possibly be moved? Is he unhappy with that quarterback situation? The Jets have been interested. There's been some rumors about a Niners swap of wide receivers for Ayuk for Adams. But I think that Raider quarterback situation is something to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, the other one for me is the Vikings quarterback situation. Right. McCarthy and Darnold. Obviously, Minnesota was at the top of the division before having to ship Cousins out or not re-sign Kirk Cousins. We have seen, obviously, the Lions make this big jump. We saw the Packers in the NFC Championship last year, and we're expecting big things from the Bears with the addition of the wide receiver group and the quarterback. So what do the Vikings do to kind of stay competitive in that division? Because they do have a very good team around them, and obviously Justin Jefferson and the running backs and Jordan Addison, and they've got a good core there. So can they succeed with McCarthy, or does Sam Darnold win that job there? And then we see the same thing.
McCarthy is the only number one pick who's unsigned right now. So with teams going to camp this week, the longer that he's out, if he's out for an extended period, I think Darnold's going to win that job anyway. I think that was the intent of the Vikings. If he struggled, then maybe they'd make the move. But if he misses a large portion of camp, it really is going to be Sam Darnold who gets to start for the Vikings.
Talked a little bit about the rookie quarterbacks, but is there any rookie that's out there in any other position that you think is a big contributor this year, makes a big move for their team?
To me, there's two, and they're both wide receivers. And I think the Giants didn't have that game-breaking wide receiver, and I think adding a guy
we didn't talk about this, and now he stole my guy.
We think a lot alike. Is Malik Neighbors. I think having that guy that can kind of stretch the field for that offense. We know they don't have Barkley anymore. This is going to be a key year, I think, for Daniel Jones, but they add that piece. And the other one, I'm going to stay in the NFC, is Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you look at the Cardinals, and getting a healthy Kyler Murray. We know last year he didn't start the season, he was hurt, but now he's going to be coming back. It's a year and a half later off that injury. I think that offense can be dynamic too with Trey McBride, the running backs they have, and some other young wideouts. But Harrison and Neighbors, I think, and Adunze for the Bears. But those three guys, I think, have the potential to be game changers for their three teams.
All right, so you stole both my guys. I just one more note there. The Giants were 31st in the National Football League in passing yards last year at 169 yards a game. So that's why I think Neighbors makes a big impact there. I'm gonna my third guy, just because I had to throw in a defensive guy because I'm a defensive guy. Terrion Arnold, cornerback from Alabama that was drafted 24th by the Detroit Lions. I think from a defensive standpoint, we see big things and improvement on that Detroit defense. Detroit's secondary was 26th in the league, allowing 247 passing yards a game. So I think picking up the big corner, who I think was one of the top corners in the game, adding him to that Detroit Lions defense, in particular, where you have to go against all those stud young wide receivers for the Packers. Obviously, we just talked about the wide receiving core for the Bears, and then you got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison for the Vikings. So those 6 games, the Lions picking up a cornerback, I thought was a great move from them in the first round, and I think he's a key impact rookie for the Lions.
The other guy, and it's not a rookie, it's a veteran quarterback that I think there's a lot of pressure on, but he's been kind of talking the talk and walking the walk, and that's Joe Burrow. He's coming back from that injury. We know that Higgins he's going to play under the franchise tag. We know they have Jamar Chase. They had Mike Gesicki at tight end, which I think is really big. I think Joe Burrow has a huge bounce back year this year, and with that offense. And I think, we've talked about T. Higgins, but T. Higgins wants to get paid next year. It's obvious it's probably not going to be by the Bengals because you've got so much invested in Burrow and Chase. And we see that with the 49ers. They've already paid Samuel. We know they're going to have to pay their quarterback, so that's why they've been rumored to be shopping Ayuk. And I think the same thing with Cincinnati. This is a big year for T. Higgins to explode. And then you add Gesicki. I think Joe Burrow has a big bounce back year for the Bengals this year.
One of the things that I was looking at in kind of doing some homework is I have a big question on a couple wide receiver rooms. In particular, the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, we've got Justin Herbert there as a quarterback and projected as a top 5 quarterback and big numbers, and they bring in Harbaugh, who's the quarterback guru and all the things. But I don't know who's going to catch the ball from Herbert. We have lost Keenan Allen.
Right.
We've lost Mike Williams.
We lost Eckler, who was like a third wide receiver out of the backfield.
They've got Josh Palmer, who's always been kind of that number 3, number 4 wide receiver.
And I think he'll stay there.
Holes. Right. Quentin Johnson, who was the stud wide receiver out of TCU last year, really kind of underperformed last year in his role. A lot of bad routes, a lot of drop balls. They also bring over DJ Chalk. Their tight ends are Will Dissey and Hayden Hurst, and they bring in running backs that were both massively injured the last 2 years in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins from the Ravens.
But both really talented guys who, coincidentally enough, played for Jim Harbaugh's brother at Baltimore.
I get it, but neither of them have stayed healthy for 2 to 3 plus years now. So a stud quarterback, but a very, very questionable wide receiver room.
You're forgetting one wide receiver. Did they draft Ladd McConkey?
Oh, okay. Throw Ladd McConkey.
I think McConkey though becomes the guy.
He becomes
for Justin Herbert, right? He becomes that slot guy that we saw was so important for the Patriots.
He's this year's Puka Nacua.
Yeah. I really think that he does that, and in Harbaugh's case, I don't think he's going to ask Justin Herbert to throw 40 times a game. He's going to say, we know we have a really talented defense. Their defense is one of the better defenses in the league, and now you add Gus Edwards and Dobbins. They have to stay healthy, of course. Really good points, but I think it's interesting that he signs both those guys who both played for his brother. So I think he has an idea of maybe how talented they can be. They're going to be asked to run the ball a lot. You've got Palmer, McConkey, Johnson. I think you've got enough, kind of mouths that Herbert doesn't have to have a number one receiver. He just has to have guys that can catch the ball. And I think that knowing Harbaugh, he wants to build from the trenches out more than he does get those wide receivers. So it's protect Herbert, play good defense, but let some of these young wideouts develop. I think there's a sneaky better offense than people give them credit for.
We'll see. I'm a little underwhelmed right now with the Chargers offense, and I have questions on what the Bills offense. Obviously, we talk about Josh Allen with his wide receivers. They're drafting a Keon Coleman, but they're looking to replace Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs' departure.
With the Bills, and I've always liked Diggs a lot, but there seemed to be so much kind of friction between Josh Allen and Diggs the last kind of year and a half or so. Is that
it's an addition by subtraction?
Yeah, that you really wonder how many times he tried to force the ball to Diggs to make him happy. And now he can just go back there and see if he can develop any of these young wideouts. Like you said, Keenan Coleman that they drafted. They've got a couple of other, Shakur. We know what they did last year in drafting Kincaid. They've got two tight ends, Kincaid and Knox. I really think Kincaid plays more of the slot. You might have both those guys on the field at the same time.
They did take some flyers, too. They picked up Valdez Scantling as a deep threat, and then they're another team that's taking a chance on Chase Claypool to see if he can find his big whack.
And he actually has played really well. I mean, so far in camp, we know they still have to go to, in the OTAs, he still has to go to camp a lot and see what he can do, but they did take some flyers there, and MVS isn't a bad addition. I just wondered if Josh Allen is a little bit more comfortable now without having to kind of maybe force the ball to Stephon Diggs.
The other one that's been mentioned is the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver room, which I don't worry about at all.
Scary.
Because you've got Patrick Mahomes, throwing the football, and obviously he's got
Hollywood
Kelsey
Brown now.
But Rashid Rice, Marquise Hollywood Brown.
A little bit of a question mark on Rice, though.
Add the rookie Xavier Worthy.
Right.
They've got Tony Watson, Hardman. So he's got a laundry list of guys that he can go to, and
a certain tight end, right?
Mahomes makes these guys better.
Yep.
So the best players that they've been, in particular, Marquise Hollywood Brown, does he take another step with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football?
I think he will. I think everybody expected that with Lamar Jackson when he was in Baltimore. But Jackson was still kind of, I think, learning how to be that thrower. He was still more of a running quarterback. I think going to an offense like this right now where you've got Kelsey underneath, he dumps the ball a lot to the running backs, and you're going to have Worthy and Hollywood Brown. I think Hollywood Brown takes a big jump this year.
And Andy Reid finds ways for these guys to win, and I think he's going to put these guys in winning situations. And like I said, you can't go wrong with having somebody trying to catch a ball from Patrick Mahomes. And again, Kansas City Chiefs, I think, led the league last year with drop passes.
Right.
So something they need to fix is get those guys to catch the football.
The Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but really it wasn't because of their offense. It was because of how well their defense played. We kind of touched on it last year. The second half of games, the adjustments that they made, Spags just made that defense so dominant. They didn't have to really outscore teams by triple digits, or double digits. They knew that they were good enough to shut teams down. So we've kind of tipped our hand a little bit. We've talked a little fantasy, kind of snuck in there, and we'll be doing some fantasy segments as well. But with football right around the corner, don't forget Last Man Standing. That's coming up too. 100,000 guaranteed in college, 150 in the pros, and then the No Worry Wagers coming up as well, which is kind of a cool thing. So many interesting ways to bet and kind of cool things and features. So get signed up for STN Sports today. Anything you want to add?
Just Last Man Standing. Again, sign-ups are going to begin August 1st. You talked about $150,000 for the pro, $100,000 for the college. It's only $25 to get in. You can buy 4 entries. That gets you your 5th entry free. So essentially for $100, you're going to get 5 entries. Make those picks against the point spread each week. And you win week 1, you advance to week 2, and so on. It's really our signature contest, and everybody loves jumping in for their chance to win that $150K.
And I will say it again, 50 days till the start of the NFL. So it's right around the corner, guys. Again, get signed up for STN Sports. For Jason, I'm Chucky. We're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. We'll see you guys next week.